There comes a time in everyone's life when you realize that not all people who come close to you have good intentions. Some bring encouragement, some bring growth, and some bring love, but there are also those who bring nothing but negativity, manipulation, and chaos. These toxic people drain your energy, steal your peace, and attempt to control how you see yourself and the world. If you continue to give them access, they will keep coming back, because toxic people thrive where boundaries are weak. But the moment you make one simple decision, their power over you ends, and they will never return. Toxic people survive in environments where boundaries are blurred or non-existent. They thrive on the ability to push, test, and manipulate without consequence. When you allow them unlimited access to your emotions, your time, and your energy, you unintentionally give them permission to drain you. This is why boundaries are not optional, they are essential. Boundaries are the invisible walls that protect your peace, preserve your self-respect, and define how others are allowed to treat you. Without them, toxic people will keep coming back because they know you haven't yet drawn a line they cannot cross. Many people struggle with setting boundaries because they confuse them with cruelty or rejection. They fear that saying no means they are being unkind or selfish. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of love, love for yourself and even love for others. By setting limits, you teach people how to treat you, and you ensure that relationships remain healthy rather than destructive. A toxic person, however, views your lack of boundaries as an open invitation. They will take as much as you allow, and the moment you resist, they will test you to see if you really mean it. Imagine a house without doors or locks. Anyone can walk in at any time, take what they want, and leave you with the mess. That is exactly what life without boundaries looks like. Toxic people stroll in, drain your energy, damage your confidence, and leave you questioning yourself. But once you install locks in the form of boundaries, everything changes. You choose who gets access, how much time they can spend with you, and under what conditions they can remain in your life. This control isn't about shutting people out, it's about protecting what matters most, your mental and emotional well-being. The moment you establish boundaries, you also send a powerful message. I value myself enough not to tolerate disrespect. Toxic people hate this message because it removes their ability to manipulate you. They prefer relationships where they can dominate, guilt trip, or control the narrative. Boundaries disrupt that system entirely. Suddenly, they can't get the same reaction, the same access, or the same influence. And once they see that you will not bend, most toxic people retreat on their own. They know that where there are boundaries, there is no place for their chaos. Setting boundaries can look different depending on the relationship. With family, it might mean limiting conversations that always lead to conflict. With friends, it might mean refusing to be the one who always gives but never receives. With colleagues, it might mean saying no to extra responsibilities that aren't yours. And in toxic relationships, it might mean cutting off communication altogether. Each boundary you set reinforces your worth and builds a healthier environment around you. Of course, the first time you set a boundary, it may feel uncomfortable. Toxic people will resist. They may accuse you of being selfish, cold, or changed, but that is only because your new strength exposes their old behavior. Instead of taking their accusations personally, recognize them for what they are: attempts to regain control. Remember, a boundary is not about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself, your reactions, and your choices. Ultimately, boundaries are the key to freedom because they break the cycle of manipulation. They free you from the endless pattern of giving in, regretting, and being hurt again. They allow you to stand tall in your values without apology. And most importantly, they ensure that toxic people cannot keep returning to drain your life. When you set boundaries once and stand by them, you'll discover a new level of peace, confidence, and clarity. Toxic people may knock on the door again, but they'll quickly learn they are no longer welcome. Kindness is one of the most beautiful qualities a person can have. It reflects compassion, empathy, and a genuine desire to bring light into the lives of others. But without wisdom, kindness can become a weakness that toxic people exploit. When you give endlessly without discernment, when you forgive without accountability, or when you extend patience to those who repeatedly abuse it, your kindness stops serving you and starts serving the manipulator. That is why kindness must always be paired with wisdom, because wisdom is what keeps your heart soft while keeping your boundaries strong. Toxic people are skilled at identifying compassionate souls. They sense the ones who struggle to say no, who want to avoid conflict, and who believe in second chances. To them, these are opportunities, not qualities. They will use flattery, guilt, or emotional pressure to pull kindness out of you, not because they value it, but because they benefit from it. If you let kindness operate without wisdom, you'll find yourself constantly giving more than you can afford of your time, your peace, and even your self-respect. Wisdom transforms kindness into a shield instead of a trap. It helps you see that kindness is not about letting others walk over you. It is about treating others well while refusing to tolerate abuse. For example, wisdom allows you to say, I can care about you without allowing you to disrespect me. It helps you understand that forgiveness doesn't mean unlimited chances. It means you release the anger in your heart while refusing to reopen the door for someone who has proven they cannot be trusted. Think of kindness without wisdom like pouring water into a bottomless pit. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough because the other person has no intention of holding on to what you offer. But kindness with wisdom is like pouring water into healthy soil. It produces growth, mutual respect, and stronger relationships. The key is learning where to pour. Not everyone deserves your endless patience or generosity. True wisdom teaches you to discern between those who are genuinely struggling but willing to change, and those who are simply taking advantage of your good heart. This doesn't mean becoming hard, bitter, or cold. In fact, it means the opposite. When you bring wisdom into your kindness, you preserve your ability to keep being kind without burning out. You no longer feel resentful because you've stopped giving to people who only drain you. You find joy in helping those who appreciate it and strength in saying no to those who abuse it. This balance keeps your kindness pure instead of poisoned. Toxic people, however, hate kindness paired with wisdom. They prefer kindness that bends easily, that apologizes unnecessarily, and that continues giving even when mistreated. But when they encounter a person whose kindness is guided by discernment, they quickly realize their usual tactics won't work. They can't guilt you into staying, they can't pressure you into saying yes, and they can't convince you that setting boundaries makes you unkind. This is when they begin to lose their grip. It's also important to remember that kindness with wisdom protects not only you, but also your relationships with others. By refusing to allow toxic people to drain you, you keep your energy available for the people who truly deserve it, the ones who uplift you, respect you, and value your presence. This way, your kindness becomes a blessing to the right people instead of fuel for the wrong ones. At the end of the day, kindness is not weakness. It is strength, but strength without wisdom can be misused. If you want to keep toxic people from returning, don't stop being kind. Just learn to be kind in a way that honors yourself as much as it honors others. This shift will protect your heart, preserve your peace, and ensure that your kindness remains one of your greatest strengths rather than your greatest vulnerability. One of the most powerful tools toxic people use to keep you under their control is guilt. They know that if they can make you feel guilty for their unhappiness, their mistakes, or their lack of responsibility, they can manipulate you into doing what they want. Guilt is their weapon because it weighs heavily on compassionate hearts. People who care deeply often confuse guilt with responsibility, and this confusion is exactly what toxic people exploit. To break free, you must learn to refuse to carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. Toxic individuals are masters of twisting reality. If they hurt you, they'll make you feel like it was your fault for overreacting. If they fail at something, they'll convince you that you didn't support them enough. If they cross your boundary, they'll accuse you of being cold or selfish. These subtle tactics work because guilt is a powerful emotion. It makes you question yourself, doubt your worth, and take ownership of problems that aren't yours to solve. Once guilt enters your mind, toxic people no longer need to force you to do what they want. You'll do it yourself to avoid the discomfort of feeling like the bad person. But here's the truth. You are not responsible for how someone else chooses to behave. You are not responsible for their anger, their bad decisions, or their refusal to change. Everyone is accountable for their own actions, and carrying guilt for things you didn't cause only gives toxic people free rent in your mind. When you take on their guilt, you absorb their responsibility, leaving them free to continue their destructive behavior without consequences. The key to breaking this cycle is awareness. The next time someone tries to make you feel guilty, pause and ask yourself, is this truly mine to carry? If you've treated someone with respect, spoken your truth honestly, and acted in alignment with your values, then guilt has no rightful place in your heart. What they are experiencing is not your guilt. It is their discomfort with being held accountable. Toxic people don't want to face their own shortcomings, so they hand them to you like a heavy bag. Wisdom is knowing when to refuse to pick it up. Refusing false guilt doesn't mean you lack empathy. It doesn't mean you don't care. In fact, it shows that you understand the difference between compassion and enabling. Compassion allows you to care about someone's pain, but enabling means carrying the weight of their choices as if they were yours. When you stop enabling toxic people through guilt, you actually give them the opportunity to face the truth about their behavior. Whether they change or not is up to them, but at least you are no longer stuck carrying a burden that was never meant for you. It's important to remember that guilt is often used as emotional blackmail. Phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You're abandoning me when I need you most," are designed to pierce your heart and make you second guess yourself. But when you've set boundaries and chosen self-respect, these accusations are simply manipulation in disguise. You must remind yourself that self-care is not selfishness, and protecting your peace is not cruelty. When you refuse to carry guilt that isn't yours, you reclaim your freedom. You free your mind from constant self-blame and your heart from unnecessary weight. You stop apologizing for things that weren't your fault and start living with clarity and strength. Toxic people may not like this shift because guilt was their leash to keep you under control. But once that leash is cut, they lose their power over you. The truth is, real guilt has a purpose. It reminds us when we've genuinely done wrong and need to make things right. But false guilt, the kind planted by toxic people, only keeps you trapped in cycles of manipulation. By learning to tell the difference and refusing to carry what isn't yours, you protect not only your peace but also your future. You create space to grow, to thrive, and to surround yourself with people who don't manipulate your kindness but respect your strength. When dealing with toxic people, the natural instinct for many is to defend themselves, explain their side, or try to reason with the unreasonable. We think if we just say the right words or explain clearly enough, the other person will finally understand and stop their behavior. But toxic people don't operate on fairness, honesty, or logic. They thrive on reaction. Every argument, every emotional outburst, every attempt to justify yourself gives them fuel. That's why one of the most powerful strategies you can use is silence and disengagement. Silence is not weakness, it is strength disguised as stillness. Toxic individuals expect you to fight back, to get flustered, or to chase after their approval. They know exactly which buttons to press to trigger you. When you choose silence instead of reaction, you interrupt their entire strategy. You remove the energy source they rely on, your emotional response. Think of it like a fire. If you keep throwing wood on it, it burns hotter. But if you stop feeding it, it slowly dies out. Your silence is the absence of fuel. Disengagement works the same way. Engaging with toxic people on their terms is like stepping into quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. They will twist your words, turn the situation against you, and use every interaction as an opportunity to regain control. Disengagement means refusing to step into the quicksand in the first place. It looks like walking away from arguments that go nowhere. It looks like not answering texts designed to provoke you. It looks like refusing to explain yourself to someone who has already decided not to listen. Many people resist silence and disengagement because it feels unnatural. We want to be heard. We want to clear our name. We want to show that we are right. But with toxic people, winning an argument doesn't exist. They aren't interested in truth. They're interested in control. By disengaging, you're not letting them win. You're showing that the game itself is beneath you. You no longer need to prove your worth or defend yourself to someone who thrives on chaos. That is real victory. Silence is also incredibly powerful because it communicates without words. When you stop reacting, the toxic person realizes their usual methods no longer work. They can scream, accuse, or manipulate, but your silence becomes a wall they cannot climb. It frustrates them because it forces them to face their own emptiness. It shows them that you are no longer willing to invest your energy in battles that only drain you. Over time, this lack of reaction drives many toxic people away because they only stay where they can stir chaos. Of course, silence doesn't mean passivity. It's not about allowing mistreatment. It's about choosing a higher response. You can combine silence with firm boundaries. For example, if someone tries to bait you into an argument, you can calmly say, "I won't continue this conversation," and then disengage. That single action is far more powerful than hours of shouting or defending yourself. Silence paired with action speaks louder than any words could. There's also a personal benefit. Silence protects your peace. It keeps you from wasting mental energy on someone who doesn't deserve it. It gives you space to breathe, to think clearly, and to remember that your worth is not up for debate. When you disengage, you send the message not only to the toxic person, but also to yourself. My peace is more important than this conflict. That kind of self-respect is magnetic. It attracts healthier people into your life while pushing away those who feed on negativity. In the end, silence and disengagement are not signs of weakness, avoidance, or defeat. They are signs of maturity, strength, and wisdom. They prove that you no longer need validation from toxic people, nor do you need to play their games. You've chosen peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and growth over drama. And once a toxic person realizes they cannot pull you into their world anymore, they often leave on their own. Toxic people thrive on testing limits. They push boundaries, manipulate emotions, and wait to see how you respond. If you give in once, even after saying no, they learn that your boundaries are flexible. If you forgive endlessly without requiring change, they learn that your forgiveness is unconditional in the wrong way. This is why consistency is so powerful. It breaks their pattern of manipulation. The moment you become steady and predictable in your standards, toxic people realize their tricks no longer work. Think of toxic behavior like waves crashing against a wall. If the wall is weak, the waves eventually break it down. But if the wall is strong and unmovable, the waves exhaust themselves and fade away. Your consistency is that wall. It's the firm, unwavering message that says, "This is who I am, this is what I allow, and nothing will change that." Toxic people hate consistency because it removes their ability to control you. They depend on unpredictability, on your moments of weakness, and on the times you compromise your values. Consistency starves them of those opportunities. Consistency begins with clarity. You must know what you stand for before you can stand firm. Ask yourself, what behaviors will I no longer tolerate? What boundaries must never be crossed? What consequences will I enforce if they are? Once you know your standards, you must enforce them the same way every time. For example, if you've decided you won't accept disrespectful language, then every time someone uses it, you disengage or remove yourself. If you only enforce it sometimes, the toxic person sees it as a challenge. They'll keep pushing until you cave. But when you enforce it every time, they quickly learn you are serious. The danger comes when inconsistency creeps in. Many people set boundaries in the heat of the moment, but later soften them out of guilt, fear, or the desire to keep the peace. This inconsistency tells the toxic person, if I push hard enough, they'll change their mind. And once they learn that, they will never stop pushing. But when you remain consistent, when your no truly means no, when your boundary never shifts, eventually they stop testing because there's nothing left to gain. Consistency also breaks toxic cycles because it retrains your own mind. Often, the hardest part about standing up to toxic people isn't their behavior. It's overcoming your own patterns of people, pleasing, guilt, or fear of conflict. Every time you stay consistent, you strengthen your self-respect. You teach yourself that your peace matters more than temporary comfort. Over time, this becomes second nature, and you no longer hesitate when faced with manipulation. You simply enforce your boundary calmly and firmly without apology. It's also worth noting that consistency doesn't have to be aggressive. You don't need to shout or constantly remind others of your boundaries. In fact, quiet consistency is far more powerful. When your actions always match your words, people learn very quickly what to expect from you. Toxic people may resist at first, but when they see that nothing they do makes you bend, they lose interest. Meanwhile, healthy people respect and appreciate your consistency because it builds trust and reliability in your relationships. The reality is, toxic people will always try to test you at the beginning. They'll push, guilt, trip, or even escalate their behavior when they see you standing firm. But this is simply their way of checking if you'll eventually break. Your job is to remain steady. The moment they realize their old tactics no longer get the same reaction, their power over you is broken. Their entire pattern depends on you wavering. Your consistency destroys that foundation. In the end, consistency is not just about keeping toxic people away, it's about creating a life of stability and self-respect. It's about showing yourself and the world that you mean what you say and that your values are not negotiable. Once you embrace consistency, toxic people will either adapt to your standards or leave altogether. And when they leave, they take their chaos with them. That's the gift of consistency. It frees you from cycles of manipulation and opens the door to healthier, more respectful relationships. One of the greatest realizations you can have in life is that protecting your peace is not selfish, it is essential. Peace is the foundation of clarity, joy, and growth. Without it, everything else in your life feels heavy, chaotic, and unbalanced. Toxic people threaten that peace with drama, manipulation, and negativity. They thrive in confusion and instability because it gives them control. But the moment you decide to protect your peace above all else, you begin to shift your entire environment. And what happens when you guard your peace? You create room for the right people to enter, those who value, respect, and uplift you. Toxic people often leave no room for anything else. They drain your time with endless arguments, they exhaust your mind with constant doubts, and they burden your heart with unnecessary guilt. When you are tangled in their chaos, you don't have the energy to nurture healthy relationships. Your focus is consumed by survival instead of growth. This is why protecting your peace is so important. It's not only about removing what is harmful, but also about making space for what is good. Think of your life as a garden. If weeds are allowed to grow freely, they choke the flowers, steal the nutrients, and take over the space. Toxic people are those weeds. You may still have good seeds in the soil, dreams, meaningful relationships, potential. But as long as the weeds remain, those good things cannot grow. When you remove the weeds, suddenly the flowers have room to bloom. Protecting your peace is the act of pulling out those weeds, even if it's uncomfortable at first, so that your life can flourish again. It's important to remember that peace is not just the absence of conflict, it is the presence of balance. Protecting your peace doesn't mean you cut everyone out or isolate yourself. It means you become intentional about who has access to your energy. You learn to ask, does this relationship bring me closer to peace or pull me further from it? If the answer is the latter, then it's time to create distance. This doesn't require bitterness or hatred. It simply requires prioritizing your well-being. When you protect your peace, you send a message to the world about your worth. You declare that you deserve respect, honesty, and kindness in every relationship. Toxic people may not like this because it removes their control, but healthy people will be drawn to it. They will see your strength and consistency as a sign of maturity, and they will respect the boundaries you've set. This is how protecting your peace naturally filters the people in your life. Those who don't belong will leave, and those who do belong will stay. Another benefit of protecting your peace is that it frees you to focus on growth. Without constant drama pulling you down, you have more energy for your passions, your goals, and your personal development. You have space to think clearly, to dream bigger, and to invest in yourself. This growth attracts people who are also on a healthy path, creating relationships based on mutual respect rather than manipulation. Some people worry that protecting their peace will leave them lonely. But the truth is, temporary loneliness is far better than permanent chaos, and loneliness never lasts forever when you are aligned with peace. Over time, you will naturally connect with people who appreciate the calm and positivity you bring. These people won't need to be chased or convinced. They will stay because your peaceful energy matches theirs. In the end, protecting your peace is the ultimate act of self-respect. It removes the noise, the drama, and the chaos that hold you back, and it opens the door for better people and better opportunities. Toxic people may never return once you choose peace, but that's not a loss, it's a blessing, because what replaces them is far greater relationships filled with love, respect, encouragement, and harmony. And once you taste the beauty of that, you'll never allow anything less again.